morning. Thank you for being here. I'll introduce all four speakers and then we'll have them each speak briefly and then we'll take questions after that. The first speaker is Dr. Heidi Hartman. Heidi is not only my boss, she is somebody I very much look up to. Back in 1996, when I was a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, we used to have a lecture series at a local bookstore, and so all 15 progressive intellectuals in Milwaukee would show up for each talk. And one of those talks was by Dr. Hartman, and she was speaking on Social Security at the time. And I wasn't particularly interested in Social Security, but I did want to meet Dr. Hartman, and I was inspired at the time. It wasn't a hot topic, but as it is today, it was vitally important that we be discussing the issues in terms of our future. Heidi is not only the president of IWPR, she is also a graduate of Yale, and of course a recipient of the MacArthur Genius Award. Dr. Gary Burtless will be speaking next. He is a senior fellow in economics at the Brookings Institution. He is in fact a named chair at the Brookings Institution. He is one of the people who keeps the Brookings Institution on the map as one of the most respected economic think tanks in the country and indeed in the world. He received his PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and before coming to Brookings, served as an economist on policy and evaluation for the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of HEW. Virginia Reno will speak next. She is Vice President for Income Security at the National Academy of Social Insurance, of which she is a co-founder. She is an author of many timely and timeless studies on Social Security. Before coming to the Academy, she served in the Social Security Administration doing research and policy work. She is a fellow of the TIAA-CREP Institute, and she has a conference which is after this meeting and here in the same building, so if you'd like to attend and avoid going back out in the weather, I highly recommend the conference.
What is it?
It's the NACI conference.
The National Academy of Social Insurance.
Yes, the National Academy of Social Insurance, my apologies. Dr. Maya Rockamore will be speaking last. She is President and CEO of Global Policy Solutions here in Washington, D.C. Before that, she was President for Research and Programs at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. She also served as Chief of Staff to Congressman Rangel and was a professional staffer on the House Ways and Means Committee. She is the only person on the panel who has authored a political action handbook with the word hip-hop in it. So that's the crowd that we need paying attention to Social Security. So thank you all for being here. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Hartman.
Thank you very much, Bob. Good morning. I am Heidi Hartman, President of the Institute for Women's Policy Research. I want to share IWPR's new research report with you, Social Security, especially relevant, especially vital to women and people of color, men increasingly reliant, written by myself, Bob Drago, our moderator today, and Jeff Hayes, who is also here, and both are available to assist in answering any questions. In this time of intense debate about the future of Social Security, we wanted to take a careful look at exactly how Social Security contributes to the incomes of older Americans. We found that older Americans are increasingly relying on Social Security as other income sources, especially assets and pensions, have declined. We also found that Social Security continues to lift millions of older Americans above the poverty line. 14 million women, men and women aged 65 or older who were not poor in 2009 would have been poor without Social Security. To conduct this research, my co-authors and I used the primary source of federal government data on household income, the Current Population Survey's annual social and economic supplement, to track sources of income since 1977 for the older population. And in particular, we compare income sources across the years 1999 and 2009. This past 10 years, as we all know, includes two recessions, a short and shallow one in 2001 and a long and deep one known as the Great Recession that began at the end of 2007 and lasted until June of 2009, when economic growth began its slow uptick from the trough. Among the older Americans our study focuses on, we look at men and women, whites, blacks, and Hispanics, and those younger and older than 75 years of age, each group separately. Our report shows the impact of the Great Recession on all older Americans. While their income has held up well over the 10-year period, primarily because of Social Security, other sources of income, such as income from assets, have declined for women and men. Older women and men are also working and earning more, but fewer than 1 in 3 worked in 2009, while nearly 9 in 10 of those aged 65 and up received Social Security. Throughout the entire study period of more than 3 decades, Social Security has been the bedrock of retirement income for Americans. What does this mean? As we can see in slide 1, Social Security is a larger source of retirement income than all other sources combined. The main other sources are pensions, assets, and earnings. Slide 1 shows in the left pie that Social Security provides 2/3 of all income to women age 65 and older, and in the right pie, more than half, 56% of all income to men in the same age range. Pensions, earnings, and then assets in that order constitute the next largest sources of income for both men and women. The pie charts also show the relative sizes of men's and women's incomes. Older men have substantially greater income than older women on average, about $39,000 per year for men versus $23,000 for women. Not only is Social Security the largest source, it is the most commonly held income source. Since 1999, the share having asset income has fallen from about 2/3 to half for both men and women. The share having pension income has fallen 7 percentage points for men aged 64 to 74 and 2 percentage points for women. Less than half of men receive pension income and less than 1/3 of women. The share working has increased to about 1/3 of men ages 65 to 74 and 1/4 of women. But all of these sources are available to many fewer than the 90% who receive Social Security benefits. In slide 2, we can see for women aged 65 and 74 how much each income source has increased or fallen between 1999 and 2009 in dollar terms. And I should mention that the data for all age groups and races is in the report, but for this talk, we've just pulled out a few slides for usually for different age groups. Social Security for women this age is up nearly $2,000. Asset income is down more than $2,000. Pension income is up slightly, about $600 for women, and earnings have more than doubled. But remember, not everyone works. Only about 1/4 of women this age are working. Slide 3 shows for men age 65 to 74 which income sources have grown or fallen during this decade that has the Great Recession at its end. Men's Social Security income is also up more than $2,000 across the 10 years. Their asset income is down more than $2,000. Their pension income is down $700, and their earnings have increased by about 1/3. But remember, only 1/3 of men are working. Given that income from Social Security, which nearly everyone age 65 and older receives, has increased while several other sources have declined, and even though more are working, not that many people work, it should come as no surprise then that reliance on Social Security has increased in the past 10 years. So in particular, the share of older Americans relying on Social Security for 4/5 or more of their income has increased substantially, as can be seen in this slide, slide 4. While women relied more on Social Security than did men, in both the years we look at, 1999 and 2009, the increase has actually been particularly large among men, and there has been a shift from those relying on Social Security less to those relying on Social Security more. In fact, as slide 4 shows, the bars on the left are everybody who relies on Social Security for half or more of their income, and that includes all the people to the right in the graph, because the people in the right are a subset of those. And for women, it's 68%, 50% or more. So that hasn't increased in the 10 years, but what women have done is shift into categories of greater reliance on Social Security. For men, the overall reliance has increased, and they also have shifted into the categories with greatest reliance. So for men, that share relying on Social Security for 4/5 or more of their total income has increased 6 percentage points to more than 1/3 of men 65 or older. Nearly 2 million more men are relying on Social Security for 4/5 or more of their income now than they were in 1999. This is a really exceptionally large increase for a 10-year period, and undoubtedly reflects the devastating impact of the recent recession on the financial security of older Americans. For women, the increase in the number relying on Social Security for 4/5 or more of their income was slightly larger than 2 million, but the percentage increase was smaller since already more of them rely. And now that share is up to 50% of women who rely on Social Security for 80% or more of their income. This increased reliance is also not surprising, since our nation is still recovering from the longest recession since the Great Depression. a recession that was coupled with a financial crisis. Home equity has plummeted and is still falling. Returns on savings and on pension accumulations are down, and people have had to dip into savings. Significantly fewer older men and women have any income from assets or pensions than did 10 years ago. For both men and women, asset income has fallen by half, and pension income is down for men. If Social Security has been the bedrock of retirement security for Americans for a very long time, now it is their rock of Gibraltar. In the next slide, number 6, we can see that not only do women, the green bars, rely on Social Security more than men, the dark gray bars, but blacks, who are in the middle set of bars, and Hispanics on the right set of bars, rely on Social Security more than do whites, the leftmost bars. Also, those age 75, which are the columns to the right within each demographic group, and those older, age 75 and older, rely on Social Security more than do those that are younger, between ages 65 and 74. In fact, if we look at those most reliant Black and Hispanic women, age 75 and older, we can see that 61% of Black women and 68% of Hispanic women rely on Social Security for 4/5 or more of their income. Finally, our report points out that poverty is halved by Social Security for all groups of older Americans. In Chart 7, we can see that Social Security reduces the poverty of older white Americans to very low levels. The taller bars that are purple show what the poverty rate would be in the absence of Social Security. The gray bars show poverty as it actually is, counting Social Security income. And we haven't done anything sophisticated here. We haven't estimated how much people would earn and how much they would save if there were no Social Security. It's really more of a hypothetical example. Poverty falls less, but still substantially for African Americans and Hispanics. That Social Security does not reduce poverty as much for people of color as it does for whites is attributable to earnings that are likely depressed lifelong because of more limited employment opportunities for people of color relative to whites, linked to education as well as location and discrimination. To conclude, our report shows the value of Social Security in the income packages of older Americans. Across the last decade, which includes the Great Recession, Americans are relying on Social Security for larger portions of their income as income from assets has fallen. This is especially true for men, who have also seen their pension income fall. The shift from defined benefit pensions, which guaranteed specified pension payments, to defined contribution pensions, which depend on how much the worker and employer each put in and how well it is invested, transfers market risks to workers in their retirement years. Social Security's importance to the older population will increase even more as the U.S. population ages. I think most of us know the group over 65 is almost going to double by 2050, but the oldest group, age 75 and above, which is the most reliant on Social Security, is expected to triple in size by 2050. It is therefore particularly important that Social Security's long-term financing be strengthened. Our results also suggest that Social Security benefits could be improved, especially for those with lower intermittent earnings. Such improvements would reduce poverty further for older single women and men and women of color. But there is some good news for women in our report too. Their increased work effort over their lifetimes compared with earlier cohorts of women has paid off in higher Social Security and pension benefits than women had even 10 years earlier. With higher retirement benefits and more work after age 65, they have been able to more than make up for losses in asset income due to the Great Recession. The stable and significant income that Social Security provides is